They threw me and my 10-day-old twins into the freezing midnight street. My mother-in-law spat on me. My husband watched silently. They called me worthless trash. What they didn't know? I owned everything they had, and I was about to take it all back, slowly, painfully, brutally. I'm Haven, and this is my story of the cruelest betrayal and the sweetest revenge. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed by those you loved, stay till the end, because what I did to them, they never saw it coming. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Let me take you back to where it all began. 4 years ago, I was Catherine Monroe, the youngest CEO of Apex Innovations, a quantum technology empire worth $8 billion. Yes, billion with a B. I built it from nothing after my parents died, leaving me with just their small tech startup and a mountain of debt. I was 23 then, angry, determined, and brilliant. Within 5 years, I turned that dying company into a global powerhouse. But success came with a price. My first fiancé, the man I thought loved me, tried to kill me for my inheritance. He staged a car accident that almost worked. I survived, but something inside me died that day. Trust. So when I met Ryan at a charity event, I made a decision. I would test him. I created a completely separate identity as Haven, a simple woman with a modest background, working as a freelance graphic designer. I used my late mother's maiden name for my business empire, kept my 2 lives completely separate. Only my lawyer and my assistant knew the truth. I wanted to know if someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. Ryan seemed perfect, charming, kind, attentive. He worked in middle management at what he thought was an independent tech firm. What he didn't know was that his company was actually owned by one of my subsidiaries, buried under layers of corporate structure. I watched him for months before we started dating. He seemed genuine, so I let myself fall in love. The wedding was small, intimate. His family wasn't thrilled about me. I could sense it immediately. His mother Helen barely smiled during the ceremony. His father George gave me these cold, calculating looks. His sister Jessica hugged me but whispered, "You better take good care of my brother or else." I should have seen the warning signs then, but I was in love. I was stupid. For the first year, things were beautiful. Ryan was everything I dreamed of. We laughed, we traveled, we built a life together. I almost forgot I was living a lie. Almost. Then I got pregnant. With twins. And everything changed overnight. Helen's reaction when I told her still haunts me. Her face twisted into something ugly, something hateful. 2 more mouths to feed? You gold digger, you planned this, didn't you? Trapped my son with babies. I stood there, shocked, my hand protectively over my barely showing belly. Ryan just looked uncomfortable but said nothing. That was the first time I realized my husband was weak. He wouldn't stand up to his mother. Not for me. Not for our children. The pregnancy was high risk from the start. The doctors warned me to take it easy, to rest, to avoid stress. Helen made sure I got the opposite. She moved into our house claiming she wanted to help, but it was an invasion. She took over everything. She made me sleep in the guest room, the smallest, dampest room in the house. She said the master bedroom was too good for someone who contributed nothing to the household. She served the family fresh, hot meals and gave me leftovers, cold and congealed. When I was 6 months pregnant and could barely move, she forced me to clean the entire house, top to bottom. "You live here for free, you work for your keep," she'd say, her voice dripping with venom. Jessica was worse. She pretended to be concerned, to be helpful, but she was poison. One day, when I was 7 months pregnant, climbing the stairs with a laundry basket, she bumped into me hard from behind. I stumbled, nearly fell, caught the railing at the last second. My heart was pounding, terror flooding through me. I could have lost my babies. Jessica just smiled sweetly and said, "Oh my God, I'm so clumsy." "You need to be more careful, Haven. Those stairs are dangerous." The look in her eyes told me it wasn't an accident. She wanted me to fall. But the worst part was Ryan. My husband, the father of my children, transformed into someone I didn't recognize. Helen poisoned his mind daily. I'd hear them whispering in the kitchen. She's hiding something, I can feel it. What if those babies aren't yours? She trapped you, son. Wake up. And slowly, Ryan started looking at me differently, with suspicion, with doubt, with something that looked like disgust. He started coming home late, avoiding me, sleeping on the couch. When I tried to talk to him, he'd snap at me. I'm tired, Haven. I'm working hard to support this family. What are you doing? Nothing. I was heartbroken, but I wasn't helpless. I started noticing things. Helen constantly on the phone, whispering in corners, a private investigator following me to doctor's appointments, documents on Helen's desk that she quickly hid when I walked by. One night, when everyone was asleep, I searched Helen's room. What I found made my blood run cold. She had hired someone to investigate me, to find dirt, to destroy me. There were folders full of surveillance photos, bank statements she'd somehow obtained, even attempts to connect me to Catherine Monroe. They hadn't succeeded yet, but they were getting close. And there was something else. Adoption papers. Blank adoption papers. They were planning to take my babies. I realized then that this wasn't just cruelty. This was a calculated plan to remove me and keep the children. Helen wanted grandchildren, but she didn't want me. I don't know if it was about control, about money she thought Ryan might have, or just pure evil. But I knew I was in danger, so I did what I do best. I planned. I had my assistant install hidden cameras throughout the house in every room except bathrooms and bedrooms, audio recording devices everywhere. I documented everything, every slap, every cruel word, every moment of abuse. I was building my case. The last month of my pregnancy was hell on earth. I was put on bed rest by my doctor, but Helen didn't care. Drama queen, she'd spit at me. Women have been having babies for thousands of years. Stop being lazy. She made me cook, clean, serve them like a maid. I was bleeding, spotting, terrified for my babies. Ryan saw everything and did nothing. One evening, when I was 8 months pregnant and could barely stand, Helen slapped me across the face because I'd forgotten to fold George's newspaper the way he liked it. The force of it knocked me into the kitchen counter. I tasted blood in my mouth. I looked at Ryan, pleading silently for him to defend me, to protect me, to be my husband. He looked away. That night, I went into my room and cried until I couldn't breathe, but then I stopped crying. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, at the bruise forming on my cheek, and I made a promise to myself and my unborn sons. No more tears, no more weakness. These people wanted to destroy me. I would destroy them first, but I would do it the right way, legally, completely, and absolutely. At 37 weeks, I went into labor at home. It was 2 a.m, and the pain was unbearable. I called for help, screaming for someone, anyone. Helen came to my door, looked at me writhing on the floor, and laughed. "Stop acting, you're not even due yet. You're just looking for attention." She closed the door and went back to bed. I crawled to my phone and called an ambulance myself. The hospital was 20 minutes away. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. I gave birth to my twin boys after 18 hours of labor. They were beautiful, perfect, tiny little miracles. I named them Ethan and Evan. Ryan showed up 2 days later, drunk, smelling like alcohol and cigarettes. He looked at his sons with indifference. "They look like every other baby," he said, and left. The hospital bills were enormous, but I paid them secretly through my assistant, from my real accounts. Helen told the nurses, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't waste your good care on her. She can't afford it anyway. She's a nobody." I lay there in that hospital bed, my body torn and broken, my heart shattered, holding my newborn sons, and I made my final decision. This ends soon. I took my babies home on a cold November evening. No one came to pick us up. I took a taxi. When I walked through the door, Helen didn't even look at the babies. Jessica was there, and she picked up the bottle I'd prepared and dropped it on the floor deliberately. "Oops, clumsy me," she giggled. I was exhausted, bleeding through my clothes, my stitches screaming in pain. But I cleaned it up. I had no choice. That night I overheard Helen on the phone again. "The babies are here. Time for phase 2. My blood ran cold. What was phase 2? The next 10 days were the worst of my life. I was forced to do everything alone. Cook, clean, take care of 2 newborns who fed every 2 hours. I wasn't allowed to rest. Helen wouldn't even hold her grandchildren. George ignored their existence. Ryan acted like he didn't have children at all. I was bleeding, exhausted, running on pure survival instinct. Jessica continued her torment, accidentally knocking over things, making loud noises when the babies finally slept, criticizing everything I did. "You're holding him wrong. You're feeding him wrong. You're a terrible mother." One morning, I was pumping breast milk, and Helen walked in, grabbed the bottles, and poured them down the sink. "This cheap milk isn't good enough for babies," she sneered. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but I was too weak. I just watched and recorded it all. On the 10th night after my sons were born, at exactly midnight, everything exploded. I was in my room feeding Ethan while Evan slept in his bassinet. Suddenly the door burst open. Ryan, Helen, Jessica, and George all stood there, their faces twisted with rage. My heart started pounding. Something was very wrong. Jessica stepped forward with her phone, a triumphant smile on her face. "We know your secret, Haven. We know what you've been doing." She showed photos on her phone, pictures of me with a man I'd never seen before, in intimate poses, in compromising situations. My mouth fell open. "That's not me! Those are fake! I've never—" But no one was listening. Helen started screaming, her voice shrill and hateful. "Whore! Disgusting whore! Those babies aren't even Ryan's! You cheated on my son! You brought bastards into this house!" George, who rarely spoke, pointed at me with disgust. "I always knew you were trash, always knew." Ryan's face was stone cold, his eyes dead. "I want a DNA test. Until then, you're not welcome in my house." I tried to stand, clutching Ethan to my chest. "Ryan, please listen to me. Those photos are fake. Someone created them. I have never been unfaithful to you. These are your sons. Please." Jessica laughed, actually laughed. "Save your lies. We hired someone to follow you. We have proof." Helen's face was inches from mine now, her breath hot and rancid. "You're a diseased rat. Get out of my son's house. Take your bastards and leave." I felt something wet hit my face. She had spit on me. Spit on my face like I was garbage. I stood there, frozen, humiliated, holding my 10-day-old son. Evan started crying in his bassinet. I moved to get him, but Jessica blocked me. "Maybe we should keep them. They might be Ryan's after all. But you need to go." Terror flooded through me. They were trying to take my babies. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "No, they're mine. You don't touch them." Helen lunged for the bassinet, but I was faster. I grabbed Evan, clutching both my sons to my chest. George opened the front door. Cold winter air blasted into the house. "Out, now." I looked at Ryan one last time, begging him with my eyes. "They're your sons. You're throwing out your own children into the cold. They're 10 days old, Ryan. 10 days. For a moment, just a brief moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt? Regret? But then Helen whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened. He walked toward me, and I thought maybe he would stop this madness. Instead, he put his hands on my shoulders and pushed me toward the door. Hard. I stumbled, nearly fell, barely kept my grip on my babies. They threw us out, actually threw us out into the freezing November midnight. I stood there on the porch, the door slamming behind me, holding my crying newborn sons, wearing only thin pajamas, bleeding through my clothes, and I felt something inside me break, and then immediately reform into something harder, colder, sharper. I looked back at that house, at the shadows moving behind the curtains, and I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just decided to burn the entire world down. I whispered, so quietly only my sons could hear, "You just made the biggest mistake of your lives." I pulled out my phone, the one they didn't know I had, my real phone, and made one call. "Marcus, I'm ready. Come get me. It's time." Within 2 minutes, a black luxury sedan pulled up. My assistant Marcus jumped out, his face furious. "Ms. Monroe, are you hurt? Should I call the police?" I looked at him calmly. "No police, not yet. Take me home, my real home." He wrapped a warm blanket around me and my babies and helped me into the car. As we drove away, I looked back one more time. I would never be that weak woman again. Haven was dead. Catherine Monroe was back. We arrived at my penthouse, a $20 million property in the heart of the city, with a view that stretched for miles. My private NICU nurse was already waiting, a kind woman I'd hired weeks ago in preparation. She took my sons gently, checked them over, and assured me they were healthy. I showered, washing away the spit, the blood, the humiliation. I stood there under the hot water and let myself feel everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the rage. And then I let it all go. Emotions were weakness now. I needed to be ice. I dressed in a designer suit, pearl gray with silver buttons, and walked into my war room. My entire team was assembled. Lawyers, investigators, PR specialists, all waiting for my command. I looked at them and said simply, "Destroy them." Marcus presented the findings first. Ryan works for Henderson Tech, which is owned by Apex subsidiary Phoenix Holdings. He has no idea you own his company. I nodded. Continue. The investigator spoke next. Helen and George's house, the one they've been so proud of, mortgage paid through a charity foundation grant. Your charity foundation. They applied anonymously 5 years ago. I felt a cold satisfaction. More. My real estate manager cleared her throat. Jessica's boutique? Bella's fashion house? Operates in a building owned by Monroe Property Group. That's you, Ms. Monroe. I smiled. Excellent. What else? My corporate attorney, a shark of a woman named Linda, spoke up. George's business, Wallace Manufacturing, only survives because of supply contracts with your vendors. Cut those contracts, he's bankrupt within 30 days. But the investigator wasn't done. There's more, Ms. Monroe. Helen has been embezzling from George's company. About $500,000 over 3 years. She has a secret bank account. I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. And? He hesitated. There's something else. Helen has a daughter. Born when she was 17. She gave the baby up for adoption and never told anyone. The daughter, now 28, has been trying to find her birth mother for years. I sat back in my chair, processing. Helen, the woman who preached about family values and morality, was a hypocrite of the highest order. Find the daughter. I want to meet her. My PR director asked the question everyone was thinking. How public do you want to go with this, Ms. Monroe? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Completely public. I want the world to know what they did. I want everyone to see their true faces. Prepare a press conference. We go live in 48 hours. My lawyer looked concerned. That's aggressive. We could handle this quietly through courts and... I cut her off. I don't want quiet. I want them humiliated. I want them destroyed so thoroughly that their names become synonyms for cruelty and stupidity. Is that clear? Everyone nodded. Good. Let's begin. The next morning, Ryan woke up to an email. Your employment with Henderson Tech has been terminated effective immediately. Reason: violation of company policy regarding family abandonment and abuse. As per acquisition by Apex Innovations, all staff are being reviewed for ethical standards. You failed. Your severance package is 0. Security will collect your belongings. I watched the security footage from outside his apartment as he read it. His face went white. He called his boss, who confirmed everything. Henderson Tech had been acquired overnight by Apex Innovations. Ryan had no idea what that even meant. At the same time, George received a certified letter. Your business loan of $2 million is now due in full within 48 hours. Failure to pay will result in foreclosure and asset seizure. He called the bank, screaming about breach of contract. They calmly explained that Apex Innovations had purchased his loan and had every legal right to call it in. Jessica received an eviction notice on her boutique. Lease terminated for multiple violations of building code and contract terms. Vacate within 72 hours. She called the property management company, who informed her that Monroe Property Group now owned the building and had decided not to renew her lease. Helen's country club membership, the thing she was most proud of, her claim to social status, was revoked. She received a letter. Your membership has been terminated due to financial irregularities in your application. The scholarship fund that sponsored your membership has been discontinued. She showed up at the club, demanding to speak to the manager, and was escorted out by security. All of this happened on the same day, within hours of each other. They had no idea what was happening or why, but they were panicking. They called each other, frantic, confused, terrified. Their world was collapsing, and they didn't know why. The next day, I held my press conference. The room was packed with journalists from every major outlet, cameras everywhere. I walked out onto the stage, confident, powerful, wearing a white suit that cost more than Ryan's yearly salary. The room went silent. I looked directly into the cameras and began. My name is Catherine Monroe. I am the founder and CEO of Apex Innovations, a company valued at $8 billion. I am also the woman you may have seen in videos circulating online, being thrown out of her home with her 10-day-old twin sons at midnight. Yes, those videos are real. I recorded everything. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction. I held up my hand for silence. I'm going to tell you a story. 4 years ago, I met a man named Ryan Wallace. I fell in love. But because of past betrayals, I decided to test him. I hid my wealth and identity. I wanted to know if he could love me for who I was, not what I had. For a while, I thought I'd found something real. I was wrong. I paused, letting that sink in. When I became pregnant with twins, his family turned on me. His mother, Helen Wallace, physically abused me. She slapped me, forced me to work despite high-risk pregnancy, starved me, and tormented me daily. His sister, Jessica Wallace, attempted to cause me to miscarry by pushing me downstairs. His father, George Wallace, watched and did nothing, and my husband, Ryan Wallace, the father of my children, abandoned us when we needed him most. I pressed a button on the remote in my hand. Behind me, on giant screens, the videos began to play. Helen spitting on me, Jessica pushing me, Ryan pushing me out the door, my babies crying. Helen's cruel words, clear as day, "Take your bastards and leave." The room was dead silent except for those horrible recordings. Some journalists were crying, others looked furious. I let the videos play for 5 full minutes, a highlight reel of cruelty and abuse. When it ended, I turned back to the cameras. They threw me out because they believed fake evidence that I had been unfaithful. They refused to listen to the truth. They chose to believe lies over trusting the mother of those children. 10 days after giving birth, I was thrown into the freezing cold with my newborn sons. They called my children bastards. They tried to take them from me. I took a breath, my voice dropping lower, more dangerous. What they didn't know was who I really am. What they didn't know was that they lived in a house I paid for, worked for companies I owned, and survived on money that came from my empire. And now they're learning. Now they're facing the consequences of their cruelty. I am not a victim. I am a mother protecting her children. And I am a CEO who will not tolerate abuse in any form. Thank you. I walked off the stage to absolute chaos. Within an hour, the story was trending #1 worldwide. Justice for Haven was everywhere. The videos were viewed millions of times. Ryan's face was plastered across every news outlet with headlines like "Abusive Husband Throws Out Billionaire Wife" and "CEO Hidden as Housewife Reveals Shocking Abuse." Helen's cruelty was dissected by every talk show. Jessica's attempted murder via staircase push was discussed by legal experts. The world's hatred focused on them like a laser. Their phone numbers were leaked somehow. I definitely didn't do that. And they received thousands of threatening messages. They couldn't leave their homes without being recognized and confronted. Helen tried to go grocery shopping and was chased out by angry mothers. Jessica's social media accounts were destroyed, flooded with hate. Ryan lost any chance of getting another job. His name was poison now, but I wasn't done. The legal hammer came down next. Divorce papers were served to Ryan with an ironclad prenuptial agreement that gave him absolutely nothing. $0, 0 assets, 0 rights to anything we'd acquired during the marriage, which was actually everything since I'd bought it all. Child support was set at $50,000 per month based on his previous salary. Since he had no job now, he immediately fell into arrears. I filed for full custody with supervised visitation only, and no judge in the country was going to rule against me after seeing those videos. Criminal charges followed: child endangerment, domestic abuse by proxy, reckless endangerment of minors. Ryan, Helen, and Jessica were all charged. George was charged as an accessory for his participation. George's company was foreclosed on when he couldn't pay the loan. All assets were seized and auctioned off. He lost everything his father had built. But that wasn't enough for me. I had my investigators present their findings about Helen's embezzlement to the prosecutors. She was charged with felony theft. When George found out his wife had stolen $500,000 from their company, from him, he filed for divorce immediately. Helen tried to access her secret accounts and found them frozen by court order. Everything she'd stolen was being returned to George, not that it helped him much at that point. Jessica's boutique inventory was seized to pay her debts. She lost everything she'd worked for. Then I played my final card. I found Helen's biological daughter, a woman named Sophie who had been searching for her birth mother for years. I met with Sophie privately and told her everything. She was a social worker, kind and gentle, everything Helen wasn't. I offered to help her connect with Helen if she wanted. She did. I arranged for them to meet at the courthouse, right before Helen's arraignment for embezzlement. Sophie walked up to Helen, who didn't recognize her, and said, "Mom? It's me, Sophie, your daughter, the one you abandoned." Helen's face went white. Everyone around them stopped and listened. Sophie continued, tears streaming down her face. "I've been looking for you my whole life, and now I find out you're this? You're someone who abandons people? You threw out a woman and her babies? You're not my mother, you're a monster." She walked away, leaving Helen standing there, destroyed. The press caught all of it. Helen's secret daughter, her abandonment, her hypocrisy, all exposed. That was the final nail in the coffin of her reputation. She tried to speak to Sophie again, but Sophie had blocked her on everything. Helen had lost her husband, her home, her status, her freedom, and now the daughter she'd wondered about for 30 years. She had nothing left. They came to me 1 week after the press conference, all of them, desperate and broken. My security tried to stop them, but I told them to let them through. I wanted this final confrontation. They entered my office like ghosts. Ryan looked like he'd aged 10 years. Helen's hair was gray and unwashed. Jessica had lost weight, her eyes sunken. George just looked defeated. They stood before my desk like criminals awaiting sentencing. Helen fell to her knees first. "Please," she whispered, "please, we'll do anything. We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake. Please have mercy." I looked at them for a long moment, my face completely neutral. Then I stood and walked around my desk, standing directly in front of them. "Mercy?" I said softly. "Did you show me mercy when you slapped me while I was pregnant? Did you show my sons mercy when you threw them into the freezing cold at 10 days old? Did you show mercy when you spit in my face?" Ryan stepped forward. "Haven, please, I was manipulated. My mother, she poisoned my mind. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you. I love our sons. Please give me another chance." I looked at him, this man I once loved, and felt absolutely nothing. "You watched," I said quietly. "You didn't participate as much as they did, but you watched. You did nothing while your mother abused your pregnant wife. You pushed me out the door yourself. You called my sons bastards. You chose them over your own children." I walked over to my desk and picked up a manila folder. DNA results. The twins are yours. 100% confirmed. You destroyed your own family over lies you chose to believe without question. You were weak. You are weak. And I will never forgive weak men who abandon their children. Jessica was crying now. I'm sorry. I was jealous. You were so perfect, and I felt invisible. I made horrible choices. Please, I have nothing left. I turned to her. You tried to make me fall down the stairs. You tried to kill my babies before they were even born. You smiled while doing it. Sorry doesn't fix that, Jessica. Nothing fixes that. I looked at all of them one final time. You wanted me gone? Congratulations. You'll never see me again. You'll never see your sons or grandsons again. You will live with what you did for the rest of your lives. Security, remove them. They were dragged out, screaming, begging, but I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no joy, just emptiness. I walked to the window of my office and looked out at the city. It was over. I had won, but winning felt hollow. 1 year later, my life had completely transformed. My sons, Ethan and Evan, were thriving. They were happy, healthy 1-year-olds, full of laughter and light. They would never remember that horrible night. I made sure of it. I had expanded my empire, grown Apex Innovations to $12 billion in value. I started a foundation called Haven for Abused Mothers, helping thousands of women escape dangerous situations. I gave them resources, legal help, housing, everything I didn't have when I needed it most. It became my purpose. Ryan's life went in the opposite direction. He worked as a janitor in a building I didn't own, barely making rent on a tiny apartment. He was allowed supervised visits with his sons once a month. He cried every single time. The boys didn't recognize him as their father. They called him the sad man. Helen was homeless for a while until a women's shelter took her in, the irony not lost on anyone. George divorced her and took what little remained. She had nothing and no one. Jessica declared bankruptcy and worked at a fast food restaurant. She was recognized daily by customers who made her life miserable. George lost everything his family had built over 3 generations and moved in with his elderly mother, a broken man. Sometimes, my investigators would send me updates on them. I read them without emotion. I didn't feel happy about their suffering. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. They had made me heartless, but they had also made me free. Free from the illusion of love, free from trusting the wrong people, free from weakness. One afternoon, I was in my garden with Ethan and Evan. They were playing, laughing, chasing butterflies. The sun was warm, the sky was blue, and for a moment, I felt something close to peace. They ran to me, hugging my legs, and I picked them both up, one in each arm. They were getting so big. "Mama," Ethan said, touching my face with his tiny hand. "Happy?" I looked at my sons, these perfect little humans who survived hell in their first days of life, and I smiled, a real smile. "Yes, baby, Mama's happy." And I was. Not because of the revenge, not because I'd destroyed the people who hurt me, but because I had my sons, I had my empire, I had my purpose, I had myself back. That was enough. To everyone watching this, know your worth. Never let anyone dim your light. Never let anyone make you feel small. And if they try to destroy you, rise. Rise so high they can't even see you anymore. Don't seek revenge out of hatred. Seek justice out of self-respect. Protect yourself and those you love with everything you have. Be smart. Be strong. Be unbreakable. This is Haven, or Catherine, or whoever I need to be at any given moment, signing off. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe because I bring you the most powerful real-life revenge stories every week. Comment below Team Haven if you think I did the right thing. What would you have done in my situation? Next video reveals an even more shocking story, a wife who faked her own death to expose her husband's secrets. You don't want to miss it. See you there.